course. Present, pumps, and salute. introduce Captain Skip Lancet, Chaplain of the Coast Guard, who will give today's invocation.
May we pray? God of many names, since the beginning, men and women have gone out to sea, taking them a spirit of adventure and courage, honor and respect. We humbly say thank you for such people and for the ones who dream, design, and craft such seaworthy vessels. As you know, Lord, it is no different today. Sailors still go out to sea in ships. And as we christen and launch the Ida Lewis, may we remember the history of the name she bears, the history of saving lives, of sacrificing oneself for a noble cause, of devotion to duty. And we pray that these same characteristics will reside deep in the hearts of those who sail her. We not only pray for fair winds and following seas, but for courage in adversity, compassion in suffering, and the tenacity to do what is right and what is good regardless of the cost. You gave us the genius and talent to build Ida Lewis, Lord. Now give us the skill and knowledge to sail her. And what more, Lord, can we ask? Except for the wisdom to act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with you in all that we do. And now, Lord, we commit into your hands the Ida Lewis. Amen.
Please be seated. Admiral Kramick, Mrs. Kramick, Mrs. Havard, Senator Pell, Representative Stupak, Mr. Growing, distinguished guests, families and friends of Marinette Marine and the United States Coast Guard, welcome to the christening ceremony and the launching of Coast Guard cutter Ida Lewis. Like the launch of Juniper this past June, we have another marvelous event. I'm Captain Al Grzeski, and I'll be your Master of Ceremonies. I intend to talk some about Ida Lewis, the person whose name the ship now bears. But first I need to recognize some honored guests seated in the audience. Please hold your applause until I have named them all. Mayor John Baker of Menominee, Michigan, Wisconsin State Senator and Mrs. Gary Drzwicki, Rear Admiral Rudy Peschel, Chief of the Coast Guard Office of Navigation Safety and Waterway Services, Rear Admiral Thomas Collins, Chief of the Coast Guard Office of Acquisition, Rear Admiral Select Paul Pluta, Chief of Staff, 9th Coast Guard District, Cleveland, Ohio, and Commodore John Edwards and wife, Mary Ann, representing the Ida Lewis Yacht Club of Newport, Rhode Island. And on the platform here is Chief Warrant Officer Mark Allen, who will be the commanding officer of the Ida Lewis, and today is Mrs. Kramick's escort. Also on stage to be part of the festivities as the sponsor's matron of honor is Mrs. Kramick's mother, Mrs. Elizabeth Havard. The United States Coast Guard Band from New London, Connecticut, under the direction of Commander Lewis Buckley, is able to join us today. Please join me in welcoming the band. I have a riddle for you all today. Elvis Presley and Ida Lewis. What three things do they have in common? While you're thinking about that, I'll tell you a little bit about Ida Wally Zarada Lewis, best known as Ida. She was a lighthouse keeper in the U.S. Lighthouse Service. Women became lighthouse keepers in the early days of the United States when George Washington took a direct interest in appointing lighthouse keepers. Many positions went to Revolutionary War veterans. Some of these veterans became incapacitated, and their wives and children assumed the duties of tending the light. Ida's father, Captain Hosea Lewis, a retired revenue cutter pilot, was appointed as keeper of Lime Rock Light in Newport, Rhode Island in 1857. 4 months after moving into their newly built house on Lime Rock, Captain Lewis was paralyzed by a stroke. From that point on, the captain's daughter, Ida, was responsible for tending the light. Ida's official appointment came in 1879. Ida was the oldest of 4 children and had the job of rowing her brothers and sisters to the mainland so they could attend school. As a result of this chore, she developed into a very skilled boat handler. Ida's brother was quoted as stating, "Ida knows how to handle a boat. She can hold one windward to windward in a gale better than any man I ever saw wet an oar. Yes, and do it too when the sea is breaking over her." Ida's abilities were put to the test throughout her remarkable career. Now, back to the riddle about Elvis and Ida. Well, they have 3 things in common. Number 1, they both were famous people. Number 2, they both are very dead. Number 3, they have both been cited by various people in recent times. I haven't seen Elvis, but I did see Ida earlier this week. I asked why she made such an appearance, and she looked at me and exclaimed, "And not see the ship bearing my name launched?" So, ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome Ida Lewis, who will personally tell you about her life and times.
to watch the launching of the ship with my name on it. I want to thank the U.S. Coast Guard and a good captain for inviting me here. I am to tell you a bit about my adventures. Now, the first time I rescued anyone, I was 16 years old. It was in the autumn of 1858. Quite often, I would sit at the lighthouse and watch all the activity on the water. Well, this particular day, there were 4 young boys sailing on the water. And boys, being as silly as they could be, one climbed to the top of the mast and began rocking the boat back and forth. And as I watched, that boat turned bottom up and there were 4 heads bobbing around in the water. Well, quickly, I ran to the boathouse, launched the lifeboat, and rowed out to their assistance. However, it was so difficult to maneuver the boat close to them because in their panic, they were grabbing at the boat and grabbing at the oars. However, I finally managed to pull them over the stern one by one and bring them back to the lighthouse. I find out that my father had been watching through the telescope. You know, I think he's the only one that ever knew about that rescue because when the boys left, I'm sure they told no one of their adventures. There was one time I had an opportunity to rescue 2 soldiers. They had been walking across the ice. It was in the middle of February, and the ice broke, and they fell through. Now, being caught in the water under the ice is frightening enough. I quickly rowed to their assistance again, and as I'm reaching forward to pull them over the stern, the one soldier pulled me into the water. I still remember how cold that water is, almost as cold as it is today. I got them over the stern one by one, brought them back to the lighthouse for warming and resting. And when they left to go back to Fort Adams, I thought nothing of it. You see, I learned that being a lighthouse keeper, saving lives was just part of what you did. Well, a few days after that, I received a letter of appreciation from Colonel Henry Hunt from Fort Adams, which contained $218 that had been contributed to the officers and the men there. Now, $218 may not seem like much money to you now, but at a time when a lighthouse keeper made $600 a year, well, $218 was quite a sum of money. I was pleasantly pleased. Well, from that one incident, word spread throughout Rhode Island, as well as the entire nation. I received the gold life-saving medal for this rescue, along with $100 in cash. Also, various organizations throughout Rhode Island and Massachusetts recognized my abilities. My abilities were just something I did. I couldn't imagine what all this fuss was about. Excuse me, it's kind of windy here. Not only did I receive these recognitions, Harper's Weekly and Leslie, 2 very impressive magazines at the time, they carried stories and pictures of me within their pages. And that was at a time when it was considered not feminine to row a boat, let alone for a woman to save lives. Well, after that, there was also Ida Day Lewis proclaimed. Girls wore their hair like me. They wore scarves around their neck like I did. Why, the residents of Newport had presented me with this beautiful lifeboat made of mahogany, red velvet cushions, gold braid around the gunnels, and gold-plated oarlocks. Now, what I was going to do with this boat, I was not quite sure. But I graciously accepted it, and as I rowed away from the shore, all the residents stood on the wharf and waved to me. They were proud, I suppose, that this had happened in their little town. And from all this notoriety, I had a visit from President Ulysses S. Grant and his Vice President. They came to Lime Rock to visit me. Imagine that, Ida Wally Lewis, 28 years old, showing the President of the United States around my house, especially the light that I had tended for so many years. People were not the only things to get caught in those ferocious waters. One cold January day, 3 men were driving some very valuable sheep through the streets of Newport. And for some reason, those sheep ran out to the wharf and plunged into those cold waters. Well, the men were rather excited about this. This is very valuable. What were they going to tell their employer? Well, my brother's skiff had been pulled up down on the shore. They jumped in that skiff and went out into those waters after their sheep. They did not realize the personal danger that they were in, for a southeast gale had come up, and the waves buffeted and turned the small craft. And as I watched, a wave larger than any wave before hit the craft, and it capsized. Of course, quickly I rowed out to their assistance, and when I got there, these men are floating in these freezing waters, almost drowning, yelling for their sheep that was being carried out with the tide. I could not help laughing as I was pulling them in over the stern. I got them safely ashore, and they graciously thanked me, but they were still pining after the sheep as they were watching them. Well, I again launched my boat, but not towards the lighthouse. I headed out towards sea, and an hour later, I brought the sheep to shore. The men were very grateful. It was definitely the most unusual rescue I ever had. My last rescue occurred, I was 64 years old. A very, very close friend of mine was coming out for a visit. And as she stood up in the boat waving to me, she lost her balance and she fell over. Well, without thinking, I ran to the boathouse, launched the lifeboat, not the fancy one that the Newports of Rhode Island had gave me, but the old, sturdy, dependable one. And I rowed out to her assistance and I rescued her and brought her back to the lighthouse. Being here today is just so exciting. I can't believe all of this attention for what anyone else in my position would have done. You didn't think about the saving of the lives. The rewards were just what you had done. And again, I want to thank you for this magnificent honor, and from the bottom of my heart, I hope you have a wonderful time. Thank you.
Ida accomplished a lot for her era, or any era for that matter. Her life and heroic accomplishments were permanently etched in history after her death, when Lime Rock Lighthouse was renamed Ida Lewis Lighthouse, the only such honor afforded any keeper. So fittingly today, we launch the ship bearing her name. And for those of you who think you're seeing a spirit in Ida's reappearance, please relax. This Ida is an actress of the troupe Women in History, based in Cleveland, Ohio. Playing Ida today is Celeste Earhart. With her, dressed in costume of the period, is Sophia Dennis, who is the troupe coordinator. After the launching ceremony, these women will be happy to talk with you and perhaps pose for photos. Our next speaker is Mr. Dan Gulling, President and Chief Executive Officer of Marinette Marine Corporation.
Thank you, Al. Good morning, and welcome to this fine Indian summer day in Marinette, Wisconsin. We are very pleased to have Admiral Kramick and Mrs. Kramick here again to launch the Ida Lewis, which is the first of a class of 14 coastal buoy tenders, which we hope to build for the Coast Guard. We are also very excited that Senator Pell and Mrs. Pell were able to join us, and we are very happy that you could come as well. This is a very nice turnout. With the speakers and the sponsors that we've had, the Juniper launch in June, and this launch for the Ida Lewis would certainly rank as Marinette Marine's most prestigious launches, and we are very proud of that. Those of you who were here in June and who had the time to walk through the yard will remember that the Ida Lewis was then in pieces spread throughout the yard. She was built in 8 large blocks, only 2 of which were connected on June 24th when we launched the Juniper. Only 2 others had a high degree of outfitting inside. In 4 months, we have taken these pieces or these blocks into what you see behind me to my right. I don't think that there are many shipyards in the country, if any, that could have done this for the first of a class. I think that the people at Marinette Marine deserve an awful lot of credit for this. The Juniper, which you see further to the right down there, it looks smaller in the water, doesn't it? Has been all week on builders' trials. In fact, it just got back this morning and docked about 8:45. We have some finishing work to do on the ship, but the trials are going well, and we hope to deliver on time next month. It is a tight schedule. From here, the Ida Lewis has more work to be done inside, and we hope to go into builders' sea trials this year in late November. Delivery is in May, and we hope to have no trouble meeting that delivery. Again, I think that the shipbuilders at Marinette Marine are to be congratulated. These are the first vessels of the class, and we started with a clean sheet of paper. Before I lose my notes here, let me point out some unique features of the Ida Lewis. You'll note that the propeller units on her stern, these units are designed to independently rotate 360 degrees, and combined with the thruster you see in the bow, give Ida Lewis unmatched maneuverability. Now these, combined with essentially the same high-tech dynamic positioning system which the Juniper has, permits the Ida Lewis to hold her position within 10 meters very easily in waves up to 8 feet high and winds up to 30 knots. All this automatically, without any human intervention. The Ida Lewis approach to main propulsion is very innovative, we feel, and very different from that on the Juniper. We tried to optimize each design specifically for the mission. The Ida Lewis's crane is a major step up in efficiency for the Coast Guard, and also in safety as compared to current Coast Guard coastal buoy tenders, which use a simple boom and a block and tackle. Altogether, these and other improvements will allow the Coast Guard to reduce crew sizes from anywhere from 24 to 30 on existing vessels down to 18 for the Ida Lewis, or the Keeper class. And the total buoy tending fleet with the Ida Lewis and the Juniper class will be reduced by close to 1/2. I can tell you that it makes us feel good at Marinette Marine in a time of increasing pressure on the federal budget to be involved in a program which will actually save the government big dollars and which will increase its efficiency. It also makes us very proud, believe me, to be able to work so closely and so well with the United States Coast Guard and with Admiral Kramick and Captain Brzezinski here on such important and such successful programs. Now I'd like to introduce Congressman Bart Stupak. Congressman Stupak is well into his second term as congressman from Michigan's Upper Peninsula, just across the river. Many of our people come from his district. He currently serves on the House Commerce Committee, and he has been very interested in the Coast Guard. Bart was kind enough to meet the first time with me just after he was elected, while we were still struggling, frankly, here at Marinette Marine. We have gotten to know each other very well since then. He has been very helpful back when I first met him, and he still takes a tremendous interest in Marinette Marine and in the Coast Guard, and he is very helpful to both of us. Bart?
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here today. And I want our guests to know, Admiral and Mrs. Kramick and Senator Mrs. Bell, that this weather we're experiencing is from our friends in the north. We call it a Canadian cold front. Well, thanks for inviting me for the christening of the Ida Lewis. And as we celebrate another milestone in Meredith Marine history, I was going to mention a little bit about the history of Ida Lewis. I did not know that she would be joining us here today. But it is, this ship is named after a very special person, just like this shipyard and the men and women who work here. What Ida did not tell you was that when she took over the lighthouse at Lime Rock, she was responsible for keeping the light at night and, of course, doing her family chores during the day. And even though she was the lighthouse keeper, if you will, for the 50 years after, she was never given the title until later on of being lighthouse keeper, nor was she paid. So I know initially she was not paid, so I'm sure the $218 came in mighty handy. But her sense of responsibility and compassion you saw through our previous speaker and the rescue she had made. Not only was her commitment and compassion for people, but also for sheep in some adverse weather conditions. But as Ida Lewis risked her life for others, and today she is belatedly honored for her courage and ability, it seems only fitting that the most important mission of this ship that we're launching today is search and rescue. So when the men and women here at Meredith Marine laid the keel for the Ida Lewis, they actually gave her new life, even to the point of bringing her back to life. And on June 22nd, 1993, when the Coast Guard awarded the contract to Meredith Marine for the construction of this 175-foot buoy tender in the Keeper class, they also gave new life to Meredith Marine, to its workers, to its families, to its management, and to our Menominee and Meredith communities. As Dan said, the Keeper class will be used for search and rescue, but they also have the capability to respond to marine environmental spills in U.S. waterways and coastal areas. Because the buoy tenders have the capability to deploy an oil skimming system near the vessel's home ports, these vessels will have greater responsibility and greater ability to protect our fresh waters and our coastal waters. The Keeper class will be a low-cost, state-of-the-art buoy tender that approaches the seagoing tender in capability. This class was designed to keep costs at a minimum, and as Mr. Gulling said, the ship can be safely operated with only 18 personnel. The new Coast Guard cutter tender and the new Juniper class that we launched earlier this year will replace the current aging buoy tender fleet. By replacing aged vessels and personnel-intensive vessels, this initiative takes advantage of significant improvements in the vessel's systems technology. Coast Guard will be able to reduce its buoy tender fleet from the current of 37 vessels down to 30 vessels by the year 2002. And this will yield a savings to the federal government without sacrificing our needs for navigational services to the maritime community. I'm particularly proud of the cooperative effort between the individuals and organizations in Michigan and Wisconsin. I'm very pleased that the construction of this new buoy tender class will allow Meredith Marine to continue on into the future and to keep it going. I'm especially pleased to join the stage today with Senator Pell, who is very critically important to us in making sure that this ship and the other ships with the Coast Guard have been funded so they can be constructed to provide us the economic opportunities here in Menominee, Meredith. I think that Ida Lewis herself, and I'm sure she is pleased to be with us here today to honor the ship and to honor this boat named in her honor, and as she provides for the much needed jobs for our local community. So thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. I look forward to seeing another big wave go down the Menominee River as we launch this second ship. Thank you.
I'm honored to introduce the Commandant of your United States Coast Guard, Admiral Robert Kramick, who will in turn introduce today's keynote speaker. Admiral.
Senator and Mrs. Bell, Congressman and Mrs. Stupak, Admiral and Mrs. Bechtel, Admiral Collins, Admiral Select Pluta, and distinguished guests.
and women and men of Marinette Marine. It's a distinct pleasure to be here for the launching of this first of a class, Keeper Class buoy tender. When you all won the contract to design and build these cutters, this shipyard entered into a partnership with the Coast Guard, and our quality management program and yours. And every report I get on the construction of the ships here and the progress that we make is one of teamwork and partnership. And I'm very, very pleased and proud of that. And Dan Going, we've got a great shipyard and we enjoy working with you, and you're putting out a great product. So I want to personally thank all the men and women, all the employees here for that. The Coast Guard keeps its ships for about 50 years, and I think definitely the Juniper and the Ida Lewis, as we launch today, we intend to keep that long. The ship is a winning combination, as both Dan mentioned and Congressman Stupak mentioned, destined to fulfill our proud tradition as lifesavers and guardians of the sea, but most of all, allow the Coast Guard to remain semper paratus, always ready in everything that it does. The most important piece of equipment on that ship, however, is sitting in the audience, and that's the crew of the Ida Lewis, because they're the true lifesavers and guardians that are going to bring this ship to life with their commanding officer, Chief Warrant Officer Allen. So will you please all stand up so we can recognize this crew of lifesavers that will be manning this vessel. It's a unique privilege to introduce a distinguished American and a long and valued friend of the Coast Guard, the distinguished senator from Rhode Island, Senator Claiborne Pell. Senator Pell is a Coast Guardsman. In fact, probably the most experienced Coast Guardsman here today. And it's only fitting, not only that he's from Rhode Island, not only that he's from Newport, Rhode Island, and served many years in the Coast Guard, but this is the 50th anniversary of World War II. So Senator Pell is a World War II veteran who entered the Coast Guard as a seaman at the beginning of World War II, right at the time of before Pearl Harbor, and rose to the rank of Lieutenant Commander before joining the Coast Guard Reserve, going to the rank of Captain, from which he retired to the Coast Guard Reserve. Senator Pell had a vision for the Coast Guard back in 1943 in a paper that he wrote called The Internationalization of the Coast Guard, where the Coast Guard would have missions such as international search and rescue, international fisheries, international ice patrol, environmental protection, drug interdiction, and he had a strategic vision of over 50 years ago that, Senator, I'm happy to say we are living out today. Senator Pell has also helped the Coast Guard remain semper paratus, not only through his years of service, but as his years in the Senate and his leadership in the Senate of the United States. It's my great honor and privilege to introduce Senator Claiborne Pell.
Thank you, Admiral Kramer, for your nice introduction. Mrs. Kramer, friends, fellow Coast Guard people, it's a real thrill to be here today. A chilling experience. Also hearing Admiral Kramer talk about the length of time the vessel has served the Coast Guard, 50 years, I'm reminded of how the quality is high. I'm wearing the shoes that were issued to me as an enlisted man more than 50 years ago, and I wish the same long service to the vessel. congratulate Darren Gelding and his staff and the workers here for the very fine job they've done. To see what not only one boat, but two different classes put out this way is a thrill. I thought, out of mercy to the crowd, I would abbreviate my 30-minute speech every night and just say how proud I am to be a Coast Guardsman and how proud I am to be here on this occasion. I think that of the tasks that have been given to the Coast Guard over the years, probably more in use now, and as you have the Coast Guard being asked to do more, with less in the way of resources, which I think is very unfair. And I'd like to see that the resources that are afforded the Coast Guard are the missions that are assigned. We have a habit of assigning missions without giving them the means of accomplishing them. And I'm very grateful, glad to be here. As truly as you are, I know I am too, but I will abbreviate my speech. Thank you very much indeed for this opportunity.
Now it's time to christen the ship. I'm pleased to introduce today's honored guest, the sponsor for Coast Guard Cutter Ida Lewis, Mrs. Patricia Kramick. Mrs. Kramick will be accompanied up on the platform by Dan Gulling and Chief Warrant Officer Allen, who will carry the champagne bottle. They will now proceed to their launch positions. When they get to their launch positions, they'll look for a signal from the launch master that Ida Lewis is ready for launch. Dan Gulling will ask Mrs. Kramick to proceed with the christening. Mrs. Kramick will then muster her best swing, and when the bottle is broken and the ship's hull is wet with champagne, I can't turn the page. The launch master will launch Ida Lewis. So please watch now and enjoy the spectacular sight. Also, please remain seated out of courtesy to those who are seated in rows behind you. Thank you.
County. Thank you for joining us. Neither the Ida Lewis nor the Juniper are available for tours. The shipyard will close at noon. Thank you.